Hello, and welcome to the Transparency podcast show. I'm your host, Jesse McGrath, and we have an exciting guest on with us tonight, someone who's very close to me personally. One of the things that I wanted to do as a host of a podcast is to put out positive stories of people who are trans and the positive things that come about through transitioning, and talking with people who are trans and getting their stories is one of the greatest ways to be able to show those positive stories.
This is the Transparency Podcast Show.
I am incredibly honored that my roommate, one of my best friends in the entire world, Allison Blaylock, has agreed to come on to the show with me. So welcome, Allison.
Thank you. I appreciate being invited to come on to the show and the opportunity to speak with you and speak with all those who are out there.
Hopefully there'll be more than one or two people who watch this, and we can actually, maybe inspire some folks and maybe change some minds of folks on what it's like to be trans.
I definitely agree with you on that one. And I think that the aspect is when we have more open minds and we start to realize that there's more to us than what maybe social media or the media in general portrays, then they start to realize that, once again, we're just human.
And I think we've been friends for about 9 years at this point, and I got to know you through Facebook.
Yes. We met through social media, through Facebook, because I was living in Oklahoma at the time while you were living here in California, and I was there and just initially just met through, social media like usual.
I met you because you were an activist and actively involved in the fighting for trans rights and helping other people who are trans. I think I got to know you because one of my friends, somebody who kind of inspired me early in my transition, who I had met through a website and then was friends on Facebook, and you helped her get her name changed in Oklahoma. And I think that's how I first became aware of you and started following you.
Yes, I remember that because I was in Oklahoma. I was working with Freedom Oklahoma as a lobbyist and an activist, working against different LGBT bills, trans bills that were coming across. And at the time, in 2015, there were a record number of anti-LGBT and trans bills. At the time, there was 29 of them.
And we long for the days that there were only 29 bills.
That's what is so sad is that when you look at the record of 29 and it's like, oh, that's what we had to fight against. And we were successful in beating all 29 that year. And that's when we met our common friend. And I was like, oh yeah, this will take just a matter of, less than a day. I can go and get this all taken care of. Walked her through the process really quick. Unlike here in California, in Oklahoma, it's a little bit more of a process to go through and get some things changed or moved around, from having to deal with Social Security, having to go and work with Department of Motor Vehicles there. And yeah, there's just a lot of extra work, unlike there is here in California.
And then I believe you were living in Oklahoma with your folks.
No, I was living in Oklahoma where I had my house with my ex at the time, where I had moved back. I had moved to Oklahoma back in 2003, where I was married and was living there. And then I had left Oklahoma, moved down to Texas for a short period of time, moving in with my parents because, unfortunately, in Oklahoma and a lot of parts in the world, in the country, people don't really understand and recognize, being a trans individual, that we are just humans, and that, being somebody at the time who was educated, I could still provide a good job, a good opportunity to have the ability to work for companies. But it was very unsuccessful at finding those companies.
Yeah,
So I moved in with my parents.
Yeah, and so we'll get into that in a little bit, but so that's how I first came in contact with you, and we became friends. And then when you moved to California, that's when we really got to start to know each other. So you're originally from California.
Yes, born and raised in LA County. I was a Valley girl, born in the Valley, and moved from the San Fernando Valley out to Simi Valley. And then from Simi Valley, I moved up to the high desert where I graduated high school up in Quartz Hill.
So you are a Valley girl. You're the San Fernando Valley, the Simi Valley, and the Antelope Valley.
Exactly. Very Valley.
And now you're in the Conejo Valley.
I love the valleys.
Oh, so you were involved in sports and such when you were growing up. You were quite the baseball player.
Yes. I played baseball from the age of 5 all the way through until graduation of high school. And, it was something that I enjoyed. It was something that was, I would say, as my dad would say, is that it was a gift that was given to me. And the one thing that I learned about gifts is that if you don't work on them, they don't continue to be plentiful for you. And I stayed working on my gift, and I worked on it all year long. It wasn't a part-time type thing. I was year in, year out, day in, day out. So it was something that I worked on all the way through.
And you were recruited to go into pro baseball, weren't you?
There was a pro baseball contract that was offered, as well as a couple of D1 scholarships.
And you didn't take them up on that offer. You did not use that talent to go into sports or college. Instead, you decided to do something even more incredible.
Yes, I ended up going into the military. Kind of followed a family tradition. Both my mom's side and my dad's side of the family, we have a history of Marines. So I had entered into the delayed entry program when I was 17 years old, and I had joined the Marine Corps and went off to basic training or boot camp in September of 93. And from there, I served within the Marine Corps up through until December of 97.
So you had some real experience during that period of time, because that was not a really peaceful period of time for Marines, was it?
Well, the one thing about the Marine Corps that a lot of people don't understand is that unlike some branches of the military, we are utilized in different ways. We are deployed in different ways because we do not require an act of Congress to be deployed or to be held in certain areas for a period of time. We also can be attached to different federal agencies because of the fact that we are not required to have declarations of war and stuff like that. So we can be attached. We can also be used for peacekeeping opportunities in other countries. So we can be sent in for either a show of force or just generally for peacekeeping, or in other cases asked to go and fight forest fires in places like Montana.
So did you fight a fire in Montana?
Yes. We were sent up to Montana to fight. There was a really big fire up through, it was in Montana going in through, I think it was Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, all that. There was huge wildfire, went up and spent, it was like 2 weeks up there, pretty much just cutting down trees and shoveling dirt.
And then you also saw a lot of service overseas.
Yes.
Where all were you stationed?
Well, I was only stationed at Camp Pendleton, but I was
Deployed.
asked to go on, as I like to say, government cruises. And we would go to different portions of the world. So I've been able to go to every continent minus Antarctica, which is still on my bucket list. So I've been to Africa. I've been to Asia. I've been to Europe. I've been to um, Australia,
Central America, South America.
South America. Not really allowed to go back to South America for the most part.
Well, you've changed your name. They'll never know.
I think my passport's probably still flagged.
So you've you got a lot of experience and got to see a lot of different parts of the world, and it wasn't all fun and games.
No, none of it was fun. Definitely no games, except for the ones that we had in basic training, which of course I always remember that the drill instructors always said we have more games than Milton Bradley, which always was a kind of a joke. And anybody who's in the military always remembers certain things from basic training, no matter what. But no, there was really no fun involved. And when a lot of people don't understand that here in the U.S., we think that we have it really bad or that things are really in the gutter. But what people don't realize is that when you do go to other countries and you see how a lot of those other countries are living or how people are surviving with the minimal aspects that they have, that it is not at all bad where we live at. And even when we look at our tent cities and things of that nature, that those are better than
some of the living conditions that other people have to endure.
Yes. And these are people who have jobs, people who are working, people who have families. And it is horrible that they are living in the conditions that they have to live in. And that's where at times where we've been sent in for peacekeeping, fighting against warlords or things of that nature to help these people get the aid that we were bringing in. And it could be aid as simple as just bringing in rice, beans, water, basic living supplies.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that helps us connect is that we are both veterans, that people, in our general age groups, not a lot of people served in the military, unlike, prior years, especially like the 5 years before I turned 18 is when they basically stopped the draft for 4 years. So it wasn't like you had to go into the military where a lot of folks did have to do that in previous times. So one of the things I think a lot of people don't understand is that trans individuals, as a percentage of the population, is very small, but as a percentage that has actively, done military service, it's far above the national average.
Oh, yes. I mean, when you go through and you start realizing how many people who are identified under the trans umbrella and how many of those individuals have served in our military forces, there is a significant amount of those individuals. And when you look at the per capita, it's much, much higher than there is in any other demographic that's out there.
And that's something I think people don't realize, and that, I think that they should. So after you got out of the military, what did you do?
I did something I didn't think I'd ever do, which was leave California. I always thought I would live in California my entire life because born and raised California, loved the beach, loved the mountains and all that kind of stuff. I actually moved out to Dallas, Texas and sold cars, which was really kind of funny because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just kind of lost and just trying to find something else to do that wasn't requiring having to dodge things, go running everywhere, pack a bag at the last second. Sold cars in Dallas for about 6 months and then had an opportunity to move to Georgia and sell cars there too, which is where I actually got into racing motorcycles.
Oh.
And when I got out there selling cars and racing motorcycles and enjoying the life of the adrenaline, which is something that I kept from the military.
So you had to get that adrenaline fix somehow because you're so used to that kicking into your system and running on that. So you chose motorcycle racing.
Yes. I started out in what was called club racing and doing super sport, and then eventually got into superbike, and eventually got licensed with the AMA and was able to compete in 3 different AMA pro races. Of course, nowhere near competitive because not being a factory rider or anything like that kind of stuff, we don't get to be very competitive, but to be able to sit there on a track with the best in the United States and be able to go around tracks like Daytona, Indianapolis, things of that nature, and hitting 200 miles an hour on a track is mind-boggling.
I can't imagine it. I mean, when I was a kid, I think in 75, my mom had a conference in Indianapolis, and we got to go to the speedway, and we got to go around the track in a rental car, which can be nowhere near. But I was just amazed at what it looked like. I could not imagine going around it at 200 miles an hour on 2 wheels.
Yes, it is quite a different experience, and a lot of people don't realize that Indianapolis actually has 2 tracks. They have the oval, and then there's the basically like a road circuit that goes on into the midfield area, which a lot of people don't realize. And there's also a lot of times where you're not on 2 wheels; you might only be on 1. So that's always a fun thing, and you learn how to navigate a piece of machinery with 1 or 2 wheels in many different ways, but the adrenaline gets you.
So how long did you stay in Georgia then, selling cars and racing? And did you then decide you wanted to go a little different track?
So I stayed in Georgia and was doing that for about 2.5, almost 3 years. And then I met my future ex-wife, as I like to say it. And I moved back here to California, which is funny because she was here and I came back here and moved in with her, and we lived up in the Kern County, Bakersfield area. And that's when I decided to go back to school, started working on my degree in accounting. And so we lived here from 2001 till about 2003, which then Oklahoma called us, basically with job opportunities called us. So that's what took us to Oklahoma in 2003.
And were you still racing when you moved back to California?
I did do 2 races. However, she wasn't very excited over that part of my life and that experience. Something about watching a person crash and seeing a person sliding across
Pavement?
tarmac, sand, gravel, that kind of stuff. It kind of scares people at times, even though it's the reason why we wear all the safety gear that we wear. But she really wasn't a fan of that. And so I literally hung up my leathers and called it quits.
The things we do for love.
Yes.
So you went to Oklahoma, and where did you go to work?
So I initially went out there and I got into the working with oil and gas, doing a little bit of accounting work while I was working on finishing up my degree in accounting. I finished getting my degree in accounting, got my bachelor's of science degree. Then I stayed with the oil companies, moved over, and in Oklahoma, it's very competitive with the oil companies and the gas companies. And so I went over to working with motor fuels, did taxes for motor fuel companies. And then the 2008 bubble hit and a lot of stuff was happening, and the oil industry got hit really hard, as well as the motor fuel companies got hit really hard. So then I actually moved over to Arkansas and went to work for Tyson Foods and became a corporate buyer. So it was a kind of a utilization of both my accounting with the negotiations of being a salesperson, and then utilizing the accounting skills of understanding balance and budgets and inventory and things of that nature.
So you were basically a person responsible for buying the raw materials and other things that would then be packaged and sold to us as food.
Yes, I pretty much was one of the buyers who took care of all the dry ingredients that makes most of the food that Tyson would then sell to most of the companies that would then produce or give us our food, which a lot of people don't realize that Tyson is the largest provider of protein, and that includes to restaurants such as places like, of all places, Taco Bell.
So it's not just the Tyson chicken nuggets that you see in the freezer section at Costco. They're supplying the chicken to Wendy's, to McDonald's, to different restaurant chains.
Yes, restaurant chains to small mom and pop restaurants. They are selling them to hotel chains, to casinos. So they are a very large portion.
And then eventually you moved from Tyson on to
another buying position back in Oklahoma, and I got back into buying again, or I was still in buying, and I stayed buying with U.S. Foods, and then I moved from there over to Hertz as a analyst for procurement analyst, and that was kind of fun for a while.
So you had increasing levels of responsibility. You were living the American dream. You were moving from company to company and moving up the ladder each time you would go and getting increases in pay, I assume.
Yes. And, as we would kind of look at it as I was being able to live the privileged cisgender white male life at the moment in time, that I was getting promotions, I was getting opportunities to increase, and I was not realizing how easy it was comparable to now, how quick I was able to move up the food chain and the corporate world, or almost pick a job at my choosing rather than how maybe things are today for me.
So it was living the American dream. You were upwardly mobile. You were buying bigger houses, bigger cars.
Multiple houses, multiple cars, investing in the stock market, investing in myself in many different ways, so that way I could have, the opportunity to provide for me and my family.
And like me, being trans, were you able to keep that away? Were you able to keep it at bay?
Yes. I mean, from everybody else, yes. Internally, no. I really had fought a lot of it. I had actually, while I was in Oklahoma, it was about 2005 when I went and saw a therapist for the first time and actually spoke to somebody, and they referred me to an endocrinologist, and I actually had started hormones for the very first time. But then I realized I could not continue forward with it because of what it would potentially do to my family with the person I was married to and to her 2 children living in Oklahoma. I realized I could not move forward with this no more. So I stopped after about 5 months.
Were you talking with your wife about this at that time? Did she know?
No, nobody knew. This was strictly myself and going through and doing this kind of behind the scenes.
And that's so frustrating and is so draining on you as a person that you have to hide this aspect of yourself from everyone, and it makes you feel that you're less than to a certain extent, because you feel bad about yourself, that you can't share yourself and you can't be honest. And so did that have an effect?
I definitely had an effect. And I noticed that both the relationship that I had with the children and with her, there was starting to be a separation. There were things that we no longer did that we might have done. It wasn't that we were fighting with each other. It wasn't that we were having marital issues. It wasn't that we were having arguments or anything like that. It's just we were starting to grow apart because my brain, my needs and wants were going one direction where hers were going a different direction.
So when did the final kind of break in keeping it hidden emerge?
January 17th, 2015.
It's amazing how we can remember, kind of exact dates on things in our transitions because they are so monumental and such a big part of who we are and part of our story. And what happened on that day?
That's the day that my wife at the time asked for a divorce, and she said that, we needed to part ways, that our relationship wasn't going any further in the positive direction, and that we needed to go a different direction in our life. And I told her that, I had made an agreement to her and to our friends and family that I would stay with her through all levels. And so I told her, I said, if you want to make the commitment to end things, then you're the one who needs to file the paperwork. She did within a week. And
at the time, she had no idea that you were trans.
No, she did not have any idea that I was trans.
And so that, at that point, I guess gave you a certain amount of freedom to change the direction of your life.
Oh, I completely changed the ability. And I, as I tell people, I spent pretty much the next 2 days crying and realizing that what I had was, was now this chapter was ending. But at the same time, I was crying because I was able to now give myself the opportunity to choose what I wanted to do. I no longer had to answer up to anybody else, and that I could now make my own decisions and go forward with what I wanted to do. And it was strictly my decision from this point forward.
And at this time, you're making a lot of money.
Yes. I mean, I'm making very good money. I'm doing very well for myself. I am, able to, handle all sorts of different things in my life. I mean, I was, season ticket holder for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'd been a season ticket holder, sitting in the club level where the suites are at and that kind of stuff, and been to all the games, playoff games, all that kind of stuff. Never really worried about where my next paycheck was going to be, where my next meal was going to be, able to donate to different charities at the time. So money was not an issue. Going on trips wasn't an issue. I had did a trip with the family to Ireland for 10 days. Was not even a blink of an eye. We went, and it was like, if we wanted to do it, we did it. It wasn't let me count how much money I have and keep within a budget. And
so then you're starting the divorce process. She files against you. Do you go back to your therapist at this point?
I actually went back to, I reached back out to the same therapist, and it was April 1st when I met with her again. I had met with the kind of the local kind of community clinic, and they had referred me back to her, and her first appointment was on April 1st, which was not a joke for me.
Is that 2015?
2015. And she welcomed me back, and she remembered who I was. But we had to play by different rules at this time. It wasn't as easy of a process as it was the first time, where she just referred me out to an endocrinologist. And
she wanted to make sure this time.
Yeah, she wanted to make sure I was truly going to go forward with this and that I wasn't going to hold back.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Funny you mentioned April 1st, 2015, because I also had, that's a day that is memorable in me. I was up in San Francisco on the Uber case, and I had to call the District Attorneys Association, the gal who ran our consumer group, because I was going to be speaking later that year in another month or so, a month and a half. And I was going to have my name and gender was going to be changed by that time. So I called her up to let her know as I was walking down the street. And for people who may not remember, that is right at the time that Caitlyn Jenner was coming out and had done the interview and things like that. And so I was giving her a call, and I told her that I was going to transition, and she kind of laughed at me. She goes, "Oh my God, this is a good one. I haven't heard this one before." And then I realized it was April 1st and April Fool's Day. So that's also a memorable day for me. But she wouldn't move you right into a referral to an endocrinologist then?
No, she actually made me wait and do weekly sessions for about 3 months. And we did our sessions, and it was actually good for me. I think that the aspect of me doing the therapy, me going through and actually having the discussions, having the talk, going through and processing not only the transitioning aspect of it, but also processing the divorce and having to go through with the aspect that that part of my life is over, and that I am moving past that portion and moving into this new aspect of my life.
And so then eventually you started in on hormones. And then did you publicly announce your transition at some point?
So yes, I started hormones in August, and I actually did my public notification through Instagram. However, it was the wrong Instagram. It was his Instagram.
Ooh.
And I thought it was hers.
Because you had two accounts at that point.
I had two accounts, and it was rather interesting because someone had sent me a text asking me, "Is this real?" And I was like, "Who are you referring to? What's going on here?" And then my heart sank. So I was getting my nails done when I made this post, and I was like, "Oh no." And so I had to go through and kind of not necessarily delete it, but I hid the post, and I had to kind of make some conversations happen with some people and repost on hers, and then go forward and make the public aspect of it happen. And then had to make some other phone calls that I wanted to make because I needed the ability to let some people who are close to me know that may not have seen the social media side of it. And I wanted to let them know that we're living in the vicinity, because I did not want to lose the ties to them in the area, because they were friends that had been friends with mine for over 6-7 years already. So I wanted them to know and give them the opportunity to ask questions and to decide if they wanted to continue our friendship.
And were you still with Hertz at this point?
No, I wasn't with Hertz. I was actually with a home building company as a buyer for a home building company at this time. And it was not very long after that I found out what Oklahoma's right to work law really meant.
Which is, you have no right to work if we don't want you to.
Exactly. And that's when I realized that, it was going to be a little bit harder to hide who I was. And so, yeah. And I also realized at that time that it was a little bit harder to get employment as a person who identified as trans at that time.
So you had gone from moving from one corporate gig to another corporate gig to another corporate gig, always increasing in pay, always advancing, doing fantastic. And as soon as you come out as trans, you can't get a job.
Pretty much I go from having corporate gigs to having my own consulting company and going back into corporate work, going in and being, held as management positions, to now I'm incapable of working, and that there are other people who are better qualified for these roles and these positions. Yet I've been doing these roles and these positions.
Much more experience than somebody else, but it's just because you're trans.
Yes. I mean, they can't say
that, but we all know.
Well, I mean, they could technically have said that in Oklahoma because there was no laws against it. But, when you are walking around with a master's degree and a bachelor's degree, and they can't say that you're not qualified via education, but they're going to say that we found somebody else.
We found somebody more qualified. We found somebody who's a better fit.
Yeah, we're going a different direction. All that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, and so going through the divorce, losing your job, you lost everything.
Yes, I literally lost everything. I lost the house. I lost my savings. I lost my credit because when you are no longer able to pay your bills, you're no longer able to cover your costs. Went through, depleted all my savings, even went through and depleted all my available credit that I had. I pretty much became homeless, and I became that person who had to move back in with their parents, which at the time they were living down in kind of like Central Texas.
And so I think that's about the time I started really getting to know you. And then I found out you were coming back to California.
Yes, I was going to be moving back to California. And I think it was right about the time when I was going to start making my journey to California, because we were driving my parents' vehicles back to California. Was about the same time you were getting ready to have one of your surgeries.
Yeah, I had my bottom surgery in August, and I met you literally like a week or 2 weeks after I had my surgery. It was like one of the first people I actually got to see after my surgery.
Yes, I remember that because we were. I come out and you were on your medical leave, and we met up and we went and had soup over at Soup Plantation. We had salad and soup over at Soup Plantation. Then we ended up going out to Zuma, which, we both were like, hey, let's go. And we hung out at Zuma for the day and just chatted and walked down the beach and walked back. And I think that your doctor probably would have got a little mad at you for realizing how much you walked that day, even though they said it was probably good for you to walk, but not that much.
Walking in the sand a couple of weeks after a major surgery like that was probably not the smartest thing to do, but it was definitely a fun day. And that's how we kind of started getting to know each other.
Yes. We definitely got to really know each other. And we spent a lot of time that day kind of just really getting the ability to know who each other were as in building deeper into that friendship.
And so we hung out for a while. We did some things. We got some pictures. I don't know. Do you want to go through some of those now? This is my absolute favorite picture because this is from Zuma, and we went to Zuma, and we were going to do a bit of photography there. And so we saw this rock out there, and there were some waves kind of crashing over it a little bit. And Allison goes, "Oh, I'm going to go stand out on here." And so, we're sitting there, and I'm taking a couple of pictures, and then she goes, well, let's wait for a little bit bigger wave. And because we thought it was going to just like break over the rocks. And Allison's sitting there, and this huge wave comes, and it fully engulfs you. You kept that pose through the entire thing.
Yes. And I believe there was like maybe like 6 photos that you had taken with this, and it had a lead up all the way up to it where there was like the initial
you're just standing there, and then it's like a little bit, and then it overtakes you, and then it's gone, and you're just sitting there in the exact same pose.
Yes. And after we're done, I was like, oh my gosh, I just sat there and we both were laughing about how I held that pose the entire time. And yes, we both went out that day, and we were just doing pictures at the beach. We both took out our cameras and just wanted to take pictures and just have fun at a day at Zuma.
And so that was it. And then I've been with you throughout pretty much every surgery that you've had, I think, at least transition related.
Oh, you weren't there with the first one, which was my top surgery, but after the top surgery, which this was my second one, probably the most mentally, the biggest mentally struggling surgery I had, which was my facial surgery.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. And you have your stuffed animal Gemma with you, Gemma has gone through every single one of your surgeries.
Yes, every one of my transition related surgeries, and she's even been through non-transition related surgeries, rotator cuff surgery, and other surgeries I've had. Gemma's always rode along with me. She actually also goes on all my trips with me as well.
Okay, so you're back out here now, and eventually we get together, and I buy a house in the beginning of 2017. You were one of the first people that got to see it.
Yes. One of your children got to see it first. I believe it was Spencer got to see it first.
Yeah.
And that was when you were doing the initial walkthrough. And then I was kind of out and about, and you were like, "Hey, do you want to come see it?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I got to see it. And I also remember that shortly after I
you found myself, some furniture.
Shortly found myself moving you out of one house and moving you into the new house, and even spending a day doing it pretty much by myself because you had some lawyer thing that you had to do, the lawyer thing. And so I used your truck and was moving stuff back and forth.
And you have no idea how much I appreciate you being there for me, helping me in relationship to that. And one of the things I told you was that as soon as you have a job, you have a place to live.
Yes.
And so we've been roommates for 7 years now, 8 years?
Just over, about 6.5 years now. And since then, we've definitely have done a lot together. We've, had our stuff going on together, and I've supported some of the stuff that you're involved with. You've supported some of the stuff that I've been involved with.
Yeah, the prior photo that we had up there was the one where we went to Las Vegas to be in the wedding for your best friend.
Yes, my friend Kate, her and Chrissy had gotten married, and this was actually, 3 weeks after my facial surgery, which is one of the reasons why I was wearing the headband, is because it had a huge scar across the top. And the funny thing is also that you and I played a little bit of a joke on a lot of our friends because we had done a picture of just the two of us in Vegas.
You holding the bouquet and saying something's going down in Vegas.
Yep. And everybody thought that you and I were getting married, but it's actually my really, really good friend, Christy, or Kate and Christy, and they got married. I had known Kate pretty much as soon as I came out. And so, that was that opportunity. And you and I went to Vegas for the weekend and, supported them and hung out with them.
And you've been there for me with APLA. I'm on the board at APLA. We've done the AIDS. You've done pretty much every AIDS walk that I've gone to.
Yes.
And I appreciate all of that support. But we also had other roommates.
Yes.
We've created just kind of like a little family. And every year we have our Christmas picture.
Yes.
This is one from a couple of years ago.
Yes, this was the one from a couple years ago, and we decided to kind of do like an 80s throwback,
bad sweater
type thing, and we had a quite a bit of fun with this one. And this is the one without the bottles of alcohol in there, which I remember we kind of had a little joke and fun with the bottles of alcohol with that.
We have a few bottles of alcohol every now and then at the house, but so you got moved in, and we had this incredible group of family and friends, and we've got to do so many amazing things over the course of the last few years. And I've seen you actually grow tremendously. And one of the things we got to do was go to Outfest because one of your friends from Oklahoma was featured in one of the films at Outfest.
Yes. So some people may be familiar with Sarah Cunningham. She's one of the people who started the Free Mom Hugs. She started out in Oklahoma back in 2015. Some people might know her as the person who's kind of made the quote that if you need somebody to step in as a parent for your LGBT wedding, let me know and I'll be there for you. And so in this photo right here, this is a picture of Sarah and then her son Parker. They were out at Outfest and they came, and she, always, anytime she's been out here in California, her and I have always made sure that we have gotten together. And she's just such a wonderful woman. And
they're such an incredible organization. I see them every time I go to different prides. The Free Moms Hugs groups are there, and they just do an amazing service to the people in the community. And having her featured in that, I think it was the Mama Bears documentary, talking about the fierceness of her love for her child and her love for everybody's children that are in the LGBTQ plus community. She does such amazing work, and it's such an incredible organization. And getting a chance to meet her, it's like meeting one of your heroes. You get a chance to thank somebody for the incredible work that they're doing.
Yes, it is amazing. And, Sarah's been a big supporter for me and has been there and has seen a lot of things that I have done and what I've been able to accomplish over the years that I've been doing what I've been doing. And she's just an absolutely wonderful woman. And I know that when I go to Pride events for work that I do and I see the mom hugs and stuff like that, and I get to talk with them and I get to share the story about how I know Sarah and the origination. They are quite impressed.
So one of the things that after you got back to California and you lived for a little bit with your folks, you were not having very much luck finding work.
No.
I seem to remember you submitting something like 500 applications and not a single interview.
Nope, not an interview.
And so you finally were able to get a job, and it wasn't as a buyer, it wasn't as an executive, it wasn't using your bachelor or master's degree. You got a job doing what?
I got a job as a guest relations person at Six Flags.
So Six Flags Magic Mountain, and I assume that you were making $30, $40, $50 an hour doing that.
Yeah, I wish. It was minimum wage, which was like $12 an hour.
So you've gone from being this executive at these major companies, making tons of money, and the only thing that you can get for employment is a minimum wage job at Magic Mountain.
Yes, that was pretty much the only thing that people viewed me qualified for.
Well, thank God you got that job because it allowed you to get moved in and we could do all of these amazing things over the rest of the year. But I've seen you as you have gone from a minimum no job to a minimum wage job at Magic Mountain to then going into the LGBTQ center or the LGBT center.
Yes. So yeah, I've been able to go, and it was even a struggle getting into the LA LGBT Center. I mean, I had to go through 5 different interviews and apply for multiple different positions there to get where I'm at now. And it's been, I've now been working with them for a little bit over 6 years as well. And I've had the opportunity to work and, be there for the LGBT community, the trans population. And, it's allowed me to really be able to smile again and be happy with who I am and really present myself as who I am again.
And it's allowed you to also do a lot of your advocacy work.
Yes. I definitely I'm able to do a lot of advocacy work. I'm able to get back out and do what I do, and use my voice and use my education that I have as far as my intellect and being able to properly discuss with other people in a positive way and not have the conversation where I'm bashing or talking negative. I'm having the good sit down conversations.
And working there encouraged you to expand your education.
Yes, it did. It definitely expanded my education. I decided while I was during COVID, I'm actually one of those people who looks at COVID as a win. I know a lot of people look at it as a negative, but for COVID, I met my girlfriend, or now fiance. Her and I met during COVID. I got to go back to school. Here's a picture of her and I together.
There's Boo.
Yeah, there's Boo. One of our adventures in Joshua Tree. We were out there having fun, just doing our thing, and always trying to find a new adventure to go on. And
that's one of the things I saw you struggle through as your roommate was dating apps and meeting people and struggling to get. And so when Boo finally came in, it was like so amazing. And she's just been a joy to have as a part of our family, and getting to see her. And it's clear the love between you two it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And she's definitely has been an amazing individual, and she's been a supporter for me. And the nice thing is that when I started back to grad school, I started grad school pretty much the same exact time her and I met. And so she got to go pretty much through grad school with me as a partner. And she got to go through the trials and tribulations of what it's like to go through grad school, and not just any grad school, but grad school for somebody who's going through clinical psychology and someone who's going to grad school at Pepperdine.
And you succeeded. You actually did amazing. And this April, I was so proud to watch you walk across that stage and get your degree and your master's in psychology, because I know how badly you wanted it. And I know what you had been doing and how you had been working even outside of the LGBT Center to get your practical hours, and watching you do. Sometimes it seemed like it was 20-hour days that you were working, but seeing your dedication and your wanting, your desire to go forward and do that, it's just been amazing watching you be able to rebuild your life.
Yes, and that's kind of one of the things that I look at is that so many times I tell and I see people where they say that as trans people that I can't do something, and here's a perfect example of where I took all these no's and all these doors that were closed in my face, and I applied to Pepperdine. I received an acceptance letter in less than 2 hours, and I graduated from Pepperdine with full honors. I graduated with honors from Psych-Chi, which is the honors program for psychologists or for psychology. Honors from Pepperdine, honors from the Golden Key Society, veterans honors. So I received any honors that you could for what I was going for. And I was able to truly succeed. And I was able to also utilize the opportunity of being a trans individual and open the eyes to my cohort and to the professors that I worked with in this process, so that way they could see what it was like being a trans person going through school.
And that's what it's like. Our everyday life is we are a testament to resiliency. We are a testament to growth. We are a testament that we can't be kept down. And seeing you go from having almost nothing to now having this amazing life where you've got your fiance, you've got a good job, you have the prospects for even better jobs, and you have the prospect to, even become self-employed if you want to not have to go through middle people. You are just such an inspiration to me. You have no idea of how much you have helped me in my journey, because getting a chance to talk with you and see you and your determination and your can-do attitude, that's what I think so many people don't understand about trans people is we get put into positions that are untenable, really, to a certain extent, and then we are forced to have to come up with responses, and we are such resilient people that we're able to do that.
Yes, we definitely have the ability to show our resilience. And, that's kind of the thing is I look at the ability that I've been able to completely come full circle, that I didn't have, I had everything, I lost everything, and now I'm back to having everything again. I have the ability to financially do things I want to do. Here's a picture of Boo and I in Switzerland. We were just in Switzerland back in May. This photo is shortly after Boo proposed to me while we were in Switzerland. She proposed to me at the highest point in Europe, in Jungfrau. And we're looking up at Mount Eiger. And we're actually wearing our shirts that says Adventure Seeker, which is the name of my Tesla. And we're always out seeking adventures together. So you are the hardest person to actually get down and be able to do something with, because you, I think, have your life scheduled out for the next 6 months. And so even my being able to get you to come on here was like a miracle. Yes, it's always a joke that I tell people. I said, if you want to get something with me, you need to get on my calendar ahead of time, because if you don't get on my calendar, the chances of doing something this weekend is pretty much out of the question, because there's the weekend's already booked, and the weekends coming up are already booked. And, even as roommates, there's times where it's like, sorry, Jesse, I can't see you today. It's like at times we don't even see each other for like days at a time. And, but it's like trying to schedule just a dinner for the roommates, so we can do that. We have to do that sometimes, a month in advance. Yes. And it is kind of funny. But it's just trying to live my life the way that I want to now. And I think that's one of the things that as trans individuals, that we do truly want to live our lives as we want to live them, not as how society wants, not how some, legal guru or some politician wants. We want to live our lives as humans, and being humans, we're designed to adventure. We're designed to go out. We're designed to go and explore things. I mean, we wouldn't be in America if it wasn't for us exploring as human beings. Well, I just have to thank you, because you've given me such an education over the course of the years in advocacy and how to do certain things, because a lot of this I never knew. And so talking with you, getting your expertise, your advice, it's always been
fantastic. And I know you've helped our roommates out frequently on issues. I still remember one time one of our roommates talking about having some tax issue, and it's like, you do know I'm an accountant, right? Yeah, and she looked over at you, and it was like, what?
Yep, that has always been a joke that we've had with her, and the aspect of, you don't understand how complex this is. And I was like, you do realize that I've done corporate taxes, right? Your taxes cannot be any more involved than corporate tax. Trust me. And then
but I have a rental house that I rent.
And I told her, and I had 4. And yeah. And then she actually ended up taking some of my advice, and she goes, that was easy. I was like,
that's what we were trying to tell you. Yeah. So I know that we all appreciate everything that you've done in relationship for us in our household and our family. So thank you for all of that. And thank you for coming on and talking with us today.
Thank you. And I appreciate all that you have done for me as well. And, keeping my head held high, and, pointing me in directions that I need to go in, and kind of making sure that I stayed on track. Just those little things that you've done as well, and reminding me of my opportunities for growth, and giving me a little encouragement, and, that support that has been needed at times. Even though you may not have thought that you were supporting me, you definitely were supporting me. And it was very much and gratefully appreciated.
Well, it certainly has. You've been like an incredible roommate. You're somebody I can totally count on all of the time. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming on. And thank you all for watching. If you like the content and you would like to see more of it, hit the subscribe button down below, and be sure to hit the like also, so that we get credit for y'all watching us. So until next time, thank you.